Today's learning module is about using cohesive devices or connecting words effectively, which is an important feature of the cohesion and coherence category of Task 2 in the IELTS Academic Writing Test. We have 3 learning objectives in this module. Our first learning goal is that by the end of this unit, you will be able to explain the difference between an inadequate use or overuse, an effective use, and an appropriate use of cohesive devices, which is something many test takers are not clear on. Second, by the end of this module, you will be able to identify the main elements of how the IELTS public band descriptors describe the use of cohesive devices. Finally, and most importantly, by the end of this session, you will be able to recognize and then write a cohesive paragraph or essay, which, as we'll learn, is a key difference between scoring Band 5, Band 6, or Band 7 in Writing Task 2 of the IELTS Academic Test in the category of Cohesion and Coherence. So let's get started. Most people have been taught how to write an essay at some point in their lives. Most of us were taught to use cohesive devices to help in transitioning between thoughts or ideas. And while this is true to an extent, what IELTS is looking for is a less formulaic use and a more flexible use of connecting words. I once coached Fernando, a professor of quantum physics, raised and educated in Brazil, and an expert in his area of research in quantum physics. Fernando really enjoyed his job at the university, but had to work very long hours, and his commute to get from one side of Sao Paulo to the other was at least 1.5 hours each way. He felt that this was affecting his family life and was taking time away from his wife and his 5-year-old daughter. Fernando began thinking about emigrating to another country where his work-life balance might improve. He chose Canada. He researched all of the requirements needed in order to be able to emigrate, one of which was taking the IELTS exam. The higher he scored on the IELTS exam, the more points he could secure. Given Fernando's extensive educational background and multiple research projects and publications he had completed, he was confident that achieving a Band 7 would be fairly straightforward. Still, to be as prepared as possible, Fernando registered in an IELTS preparation course. It was in this course that an instructor reaffirmed to Fernando that cohesive devices were essential in achieving a Band 7. With this information, Fernando felt confident in taking his first IELTS test. When he received his results of a Band 6.5 in writing, he was shocked. How could this happen? Well, what Fernando did not realize was that showing that he knew many connecting words and overusing them was actually limiting his cohesion and coherence score. What is more important is having a range of them and being able to use them effectively and appropriately. This is the case in both Task 1 and Task 2 of the Academic IELTS Writing Test, but especially so in Task 2. As we'll see in our next slide, there are 4 parts to how the examiner rates your writing, and each of those account for 25% of your score. The ability to fully answer the question, your vocabulary, the range and accuracy of your grammar each make up 25% of your score. The other 25% is how well you organize your essay, including your use of cohesive devices. As Fernando found out, answering the question appropriately, having strong vocabulary, and accurate grammar was not enough. He missed something in the task that's very important in getting a high score, a flexible and appropriate use of cohesive devices. In this slide, we can see the public version of the band descriptors. The writing examiner has more detail than this, which they refer to when marking your task 2. But the public version is very instructive for us. These are available on the official IELTS website, IELTS.org. So I recommend that every test taker go there and print a copy and make sure that you understand how your writing will be scored. You'll note that there are 4 categories of scoring, and that each of them account for 25% of your total task 1 writing score, task 2. To be awarded a particular band level, your writing must meet all the positive criteria for that level. In the example here, this test taker addressed all parts of the question well. That scored band 7. They used vocabulary that was awarded band 7 and used grammar characteristic of band 7. However, the cohesion and coherence score did not meet all of the positive criteria for band 7, nor even of band 6, and so scored band 5. Since each of these 4 categories are worth 25%, their total score fell to the average, 6.5, despite having band 7 grammar, band 7 vocabulary, and band 7 task response. So in the next slide, we will look more closely at cohesion and coherence, the category second from the left. You will see that this test taker scored 6.5, not because of his lack of understanding of the prompt or an ability to use vocabulary or grammar accurately, but because of an overuse and inaccurate use of cohesive devices. You can see that I've highlighted in yellow some of the parts of cohesion and coherence category. Let's take a close-up look at those. This is a close-up of the criteria for band 5, band 6, and band 7 in the cohesion and coherence category. Remember, you must meet all of the positive criteria in a particular band in order to be awarded that band score. If you meet all of the other criteria for that band, but you overuse and/or inaccurately use cohesive devices, you'll receive a band 5. If you use cohesive devices effectively, even in a mechanical way, you'll be awarded a band 6. If you want a band 7 though, in IELTS Academic Writing Task 2, you'll need to show an appropriate use of cohesive devices. So as you can see, being able to use cohesive devices is important in Task 2. So what does overuse, effective use, or appropriate use look like? Let's take a closer look. I'd like you to pause the video here, take some paper and a pen or pencil, and read this essay question and the 1-paragraph response. The question is asking for both views and your opinion on this topic about what students should study at university. So put the video on pause and take about 3 minutes to think about and write down if you think this is an effective use of cohesive devices. When you're finished, click play, and you can compare what you've written with what an examiner might consider to be an effective use of connecting words. Did you find it difficult to decide if this response is an effective use of cohesive devices or not? If so, don't worry, as many of us were taught to write this way. Fernando was also used to writing this way. He is, after all, signaling the relationship between his thoughts and between the sentences. It is his overuse and inaccurate use of cohesive devices that brings his score down. We should always begin by looking at the publicly available band descriptors for Task 2. You can see in the top right of the slide, and here we see the descriptors for cohesion and coherence category at a band 5. The band descriptors actually tell us that examiners are looking for inadequate, inaccurate, or overuse of cohesive devices. Look at the words I've circled in yellow. In other words, if you do not use enough cohesive devices to help organize your essay, or you use them incorrectly, perhaps you use however instead of therefore, or you use too many cohesive devices, your cohesion and coherence score will be negatively impacted. I want to talk about common mistakes that test takers make in IELTS Academic Writing Task 2. Test takers often think that they are supposed to write many connecting words to show that they have a knowledge of them, and usually they place them at the beginning of a sentence. When Fernando and I began working together on his IELTS preparation, I quickly noticed that this is exactly what he was doing. His writing was formulaic or mechanical, and because this was how he was accustomed to writing essays, it came as a surprise to him that this is not what IELTS examiners were looking for in order to award him a band 7. Look again at Fernando's paragraph. You can see that there are 5 cohesive devices in a fairly short paragraph. All of them are used at the beginning of the sentence, and however, which should be used to signal contrast, is used here to indicate consequence. So as you can see, using too many cohesive devices is not the same as using them effectively. So does this mean that you should strictly limit the number of cohesive devices used? That's the question we'll address in our next slide. Actually, I do recommend that you use cohesive devices or connecting words, but do so when it will be effective and appropriate. It is absolutely not helpful to use a connecting word in the majority of your sentences. Your thoughts and ideas will naturally have cohesion if they are organized logically. For example, it's not necessary to start the first paragraph with first of all, and the second with secondly, and the third one with finally, as this is already implied in a logical and organized essay. Also, the placement of the cohesive devices is important. Try not to use them always at the beginning of the sentence. Being able to use them within a sentence shows much more flexibility and an appropriate use. So read through this edited paragraph to see if you can see the difference in the use of cohesive devices. What you should notice is that there are fewer being used, yet the paragraph still has cohesion, and the cohesive devices are used in a more effective way. In summary, by using the strategies we've talked about in this short explainer video, Fernando and you can avoid being penalized in the cohesion and coherence category of IELTS Academic Writing Task 2.